Thanks, Mike. And we focused on the U.S. economy. U.S. retail sales rose again in July, the fourth straight month of gains. American households are spending more, a sign that the economy may be picking up momentum. The Commerce Department says retail sales gained 0.2%, falling short of expectations. Sales rose 0.6% last month, but excluding volatile sales figures from autos, gas, and building supplies, the core figure actually rose 0.5%. And some economists say households are spending more freely thanks to an improving job market and increased confidence in their home equity, and that's helping offset government cutbacks that have dampened growth. And for more on the retail data, we're now joined by Britt Beemer, chairman and founder of America's Research Group, a consumer behavior research and strategic marketing firm. Britt, thanks so much for joining us. Let's get straight into it. Thank you. Retail sales increased 0.2% in July from June. Wall Street had expected a 0.3% increase. Some economists say it points to continued improvement. Others are disappointed given that it is the big back-to-school season. How do you interpret the data?
Well, I look at two ways. Number one, think about the fact that cotton prices have gone up significantly in the last 2 years. So retail sales on the apparel side have got to grow at least 0.6 or 0.7 a month just to keep up with the increase in cotton prices. So when sales are under 0.6 or 0.7%, that means that you're seeing actually a decrease in units compared to a year ago. The other thing I see, though, which is a bigger issue, is the fact that this year, 44% of parents tell us that during the back-to-school season, they're going to try to buy as little as possible, shove as much as those purchases into December, when they get lower prices so their kids can have more gifts under the Christmas tree and not buy as much as back-to-school season. I think it's going to be a very tough back-to-school season unless retailers really slash prices and give consumers big discounts.
So I'm sensing that you agree with the Retail Federation, which called the report a mixed bag for retailers, saying that the economy appears to be stuck in a rut if they're pushing their shopping to later on in the year.
There's no question that we're in a rut, and I think that's a good way to describe it. I think there's a lot of problems out there on the retail side. A lot of it started in February this year when 19% of households found out that they were going to have to pay an extra $50 to $100 more a month for health care insurance costs because their employer couldn't deal with all the increases. So that was the first thing we saw happen. But the second thing we've seen happen all year is that 74% of parents continue to say that they're trying to avoid credit cards as much as possible so they don't dig themselves back in that credit hole. So when consumers are in a cash debit card mentality, it reduces the amount of money they can spend each month because they only have so much money left after they pay all their necessary bills.
But I suppose that's good in the long run for the economy that at least consumers are not incurring debt. I mean, that's what got us into this mess in the first place. Well,
you're right, and that's a big issue. The trouble is, what's good for the consumer may not be good for the retailer because the retailers want to see these bigger increases. I mean, you know, one of the problems we've had over the last 10 years has been the fact that at one time, retailers were much more focused on Main Street and their customer. Now they're much more focused on Wall Street and their investment and their share prices. So what's happening is that with so many companies being publicly held, they're focused on how they can get their earnings up and how they can get, you know, their profits higher. Well, the problem is that they're doing more things in retail stores. I mean, I've always said you can't cut expenses and grow market share. What's happening is that so many retailers today are giving the consumers less and less service in their stores, and they're expecting consumers to come back. And I think what I've noticed this year is 38% of consumers have told us they will not go back to a retail store they shopped this past year due to poor customer service. And that really is a death nail in those retail stores where they've driven consumers off because they can't find help.
So who is going to benefit then if they're not going back to those retailers? Who's going to pick up the slack because consumers still need to purchase the goods that they need to purchase?
Well, yes and no. I mean, what happens is, Michelle, is that if you've got consumers, for example, this year, and I'll give you an illustration, 40% of parents tell us that right now they're worried because they can't use their home equity as a piggy bank like they have in the past to be able to help fund their kids' college education. So there are a lot of 40% of parents out there are trying to save more and more right now in order to be able to contribute something to their kids' college education in 5, 6, 7, or 8 years. Well, when that happens, if a consumer has a bad experience at a retail store, they just may not buy anything else at all in that category. And this year is a great example. Keep in mind that normally only about 10 to 12% of consumers normally say that they spend the most of the money on shoes for back to school. That number this year is 25%. So that means that a quarter of parents are going to buy their kids shoes because they don't want to make their kids go to school with tight-fitting shoes, but they're going to let the apparel purchases fall on the wayside until December when they can save an extra 20 or 30%. So what's happened is that parents have figured out a way to cut prices, even though that may mean that their children have to wear the same clothes this year as they wore in April and May when they got out of school, and kind of push those clothes into November and December when their children can get bigger and grow larger.
What is the one product that has seen a boost in the back-to-school shopping spree? Or category of product?
Shoes have been the biggest category, and my clients who are shoe retailers have told me that they've seen some between 11 and 13% increases in sales in the months of July and August. So I think the shoe retailers are going to be the big winners so far in back to school. And also Walmart is seeing a good increase in their shoe category, as well as Target, from what I understand. So any retailer selling shoes is going to see a better sales increase in that category.
Okay, so it's shoe season. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Britt Beemer, Chairman and Founder of America's Research Group.